for everyone listening, we have to take perfect out of our vocabulary. Are you someone who thinks that their diet needs to look exactly a certain way? Or, as we've talked about here often, you have certain foods that are good, certain foods that are bad, and ultimately think that you are good or bad based on how you eat or how you exercise? If so, welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. Today, we're going to talk about how this perfectionism mindset is ultimately keeping you in behaviors that you don't want to engage in. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Woo! Welcome. For those of you new to this podcast, we are going to banter for 10 to 15 minutes. So if you want to move on to this subject of the day, check out the show notes below. Okay, so I had a spiritual healer. So I was going through it with my dad in the hospital. My mom and I got in this huge fight, not fight, but like she just like
your mother
pissed me off. And felt very numb. I went,
have you talked to her since?
Yes. Okay. Everything's back to normal. And I'm just like, whatever. I was way numb. I went straight into like my turtle shell. And I'm like, I can't do this. I need to feel something. So I reached out to a few friends and they're like, this gal's great. So she came to my house and we did it in my room. And she had the bowls, the sound bowls. Mm-hmm. She's a Greek Orthodox sound healer. So it was actually very much STEM. It's like rooted in Catholicism. And she was amazing. She had incense and she did a prayer in Greek. And then I laid down and she did this other like vibration stuff where she like clinged these little things together and then they go, woo. It was crazy. It's very much like EMDR because it was like accessing because it did this bilateral thing in your brain. Then she played the sounds and I just sat there and I breathed through it. Brooklyn showed up first.
Whoa.
Yeah, she showed up first and then I started crying.
Of course.
And after Brooklyn showed up, my nose went numb, completely numb. And I heard I can't breathe in my head. My dad had that high flow on. Right. And it was crazy. The tip of my nose was completely numb. It was something I've never felt before. Like even in meditation.
Do you pray like regularly?
I don't like sit, kneel, pray, but yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
I was just wondering.
Yeah. Or I just talk.
Yeah.
And I know I'm talking to somebody. Sometimes I just talk to Brooklyn. so then.
Ricky God.
Yes. To my little angel. So then my hands got really cold. And that was that. But then afterwards, she talks to you about like her experience with like what she felt come through. She goes, there's a woman that came through. She has dark curly hair and always well put together. She goes, is she like your grandmother? I was like, no. And I said, well, she goes, are you she was very close to you. And I was like, yes, it's my mentor, Johnetta.
Oh.
And Johnetta was someone who kind of saw me being not in a great place and kind of rescued me. She was the first African-American woman to be in a leadership position for the IRS. And that's how we met her because my parents ran the cafeteria down at the bottom. And she would take me out in her Mercedes and like take me to the symphony and take me to Fashion Square and like tell me like,
yeah, show you
shit.
You can have this life.
Yeah. Well, and then she won the lottery after that.
Oh my God.
So she had already like been this badass and she was just so open. Like she told me, she said, and this was the last conversation I had with her before she passed away. She goes, I want you to know, like, I shouldn't have had kids and it's okay if you don't want them. She goes, I don't have the relationship with my children that I should because I did it for somebody else. And I think it's so powerful that you're not doing that. Like,
how old were you?
This was, she died basically 20 days after I got engaged.
Okay.
So
yeah.
33, 34. Okay. So, she's always just been that person. Like you can do anything, you can be anyone. Like, and she told me, she was like, I saw your mama. That's how she would say it. Like, she was struggling. Like she saw it before I saw it. And so she showed up
mentally struggling.
Correct. Yeah. She showed up.
Oh.
And then the thing that, I didn't tell you guys this. So beginning of it, I pull like a card, like almost like a tarot card, but it wasn't a tarot card. It was like a affirmation card, but I didn't see it. The card. Oh, the card says this, y'all. Stop trying to fix people.
Oh.
It's not your job to fix anyone. Allow people the dignity of their own paths. It's like, interesting. But she said, she goes, and maybe she says this to everyone, but she goes, I have never experienced such a pure heart. She goes, you like bleed for people. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And she just kept saying that over and over again. It was
like, I get it.
I know. I'm like, I got a good heart.
Yeah, I got it.
And there's a lot of other things that happened, but I will say I felt really good afterwards, and I'm very much at peace. I'm like, can you come every morning?
I know.
Like, please come
Sometimes
back.
you do those things. You're like, okay, I'm recentered. Thank you.
Yeah. And she like gave me some Psalms for my dad, and she was great. She gave me a little crystal. Like, give me all the things.
Huh.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
You should do it.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I want to do that.
It's very loud though.
Oh.
She has like a drum.
Oh, really?
Like
so Michael needs to be gone.
Yes. I'd be like,
I hate when he's home when I do those weird things, because I can like hear him and it's like, you're distracting me from my like my altered lives. Yeah.
Right. I know. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like,
yeah. I wonder if she does that, because I still want to do that. But it was really healing. And she goes, you're very protected. Some of the things she said, she goes, you had a lot of pressure like down here. Like,
oh,
yeah. And she was like,
as Christina points to her lower belly.
My lower belly.
Yeah.
So obviously I had a hysterectomy and a reason for that. So it's like, there's a lot of trauma there. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So this is good.
Interesting.
I'll do it again.
Okay.
She's going to Greece for the summer though.
Oh, damn.
I know. But summer's not here yet.
Yeah.
So that was something else.
I don't have anything.
All right.
I have a 4-month-old.
Yes. Every time we talk about her, I feel like she's getting older.
She is getting older. She's much more like this. Yeah. Looking away around.
And I still haven't met her. Still. I know. To this day.
Why?
It's not my invite to get.
That's true.
To offer.
Okay. Well then.
Well, luckily the girl who was doing our custom onesies never got back to me, because they wouldn't fit her anymore. I wasn't going to give them to her until I met her. All right. Well, let's talk about very short banter today. Yes. You're welcome. The perfectionistic dieter, right? And why this keeps them stuck. Now, I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this than we have before. And we've touched on this in other podcasts, and I've talked about examples from clients. But, from surface level, and not even surface level, our surface level, it's very much this idea that I restrict my food. And when I restrict my food, it's also the types of foods that I'm eating that are okay. And when I am human and I have something outside of these set rules, I am a failure. And what happens with that is not the behavior. Behavior happens. It's what you tell yourself about yourself because that thing happens. And that's what we're going to get into today. Other ways of looking at this is like, I have very limited choices.
Yeah.
Like I can only have this, not that. And oftentimes you don't diet because, well, I can't do it in this rigid way, so I'm not going to do it at all. So we're going to talk about how to break that.
I would talk about more like thinking of Mediterranean diet, the Whole30, keto, carnivore,
I don't
paleo.
put the Mediterranean into this
You don't?
category. No, because you're not restricting anything.
I put it in like
perfectionism light.
Yeah, well, like more so of like I only stay within this boundary, and like this is what they say. I don't like add in processed carbs.
Gotcha.
And it's like, well, you can though if you want. Like you don't have to be Mediterranean strict.
Right.
So I would put it into the person who follows the diet exactly as laid out, like intermittent fasting. Like for example, they will not break that fast before 12 p.m. Like at 11:59. No. Okay, 12 p.m. Now I can.
Right.
So they follow the rules of that diet so strictly, creating like I'm doing it perfectly, because if I do it perfectly, I'm going to get the outcome that I'm seeking.
Right.
Not realizing you're restricting yourself significantly. And then when you do have the process thing or outside of the diet, like for me, it was paleo, right? So if I did have like rice, like that was, I failed.
And I want you to hear what Amanda said there. Rice.
Yeah.
Right. She didn't have, a cupcake.
I would literally, or we would go to the specific sushi spot and I would get the sushi roll, no rice.
Right.
Because I just, nope.
Just like cucumber.
No, they would do it wrapped in seaweed. It had to be wrapped in seaweed. And then they would just essentially make the roll without the rice. And then I would do no dressings.
Yeah.
So it was like I was just eating raw fish for no reason.
Well, and this goes back to this idea that our government, the marketing out there, big food, big pharma, all the things have said like this food's good, this food's bad.
Yeah, back and forth, back and forth.
Back and forth. And the funny thing is, you guys, is it's changed so much that like every single macronutrient, which is how we eat our food, has been bad at some point, right? Even protein. They say protein causes liver failure. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
So in your minds, you're trying to make up, what is the truth.
Yeah.
And through that, and through, we talked about this with keto, the fact that you do see some weight loss in the beginning of it.
Is because you're in a caloric deficit.
Well, and you lose, if you don't eat carbs, you don't hold a lot of weight. Water. Thank you. Water weight. And so you say, okay, well, they said carbs are bad, so I'm not going to eat the carbs. But you, number one, cannot sustain that. Like, that's not human to not have carbohydrates, even fruit. So I was reading something the other day, and it was talking about how processed foods, right, and sugars they mimic fruit because the earth provides fruit and makes it taste good in an effort to eat more of it because it's so good for you. Do you know that? That's why fruit tastes so good. It's literally this ecosystem all works together, right?
I'm with you.
So it literally was designed to be like, I'm gonna make this taste good for you because it's really good for you. Now people will be like, well, why don't vegetables taste that good? I don't know. I'm not God or whatever you believe in.
Yeah.
And that's what people did with processed foods.
Well,
make it so that it's that same idea of it tastes so good that you'll want more of it.
Well, and this is the thing, like they're focusing on like the red dye right now. And I'm like, the red dye, like, yeah, let's get that out. Sure. But that's not the issue. The issue is that people are following these strict diets, right? And so now they're like, can't have anything with red dye. It's like, what? Like, you're not having anything of anything at some point. Like, oh, I can't have fats because they make me fat. And it's like, no, you need fats for hormonal health.
Right.
Like, the red dye is not the issue. The processed foods are not the issue. It's your relationship with them. It's you cutting them out and keeping it perfect in that standpoint. It's you saying, no, I can't have that. And then doing that. And then only when you can have that or you want to have that, you end up overeating because you've been restricting it so long.
Well, it's not even that you're restricting it. Again, it's not the restriction. It's what you make up about yourself because you're restricting and because you ate the food you weren't supposed to. Those are two different conversations you're having with yourself. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today.
Okay.
So understanding this perfect in diet. So again, it's that good, bad mentality. Now, the way that I've always educate myself. So the way I originally looked at this is like, I'm good if I eat good. I'm bad if I eat bad. Yes. And I am good when I eat the, chicken, broccoli, and rice, right? I am good. And that has proved to me, like when I follow specific rules and I do what I think other people want me to do, or I do what I've been told means good to me, then I receive love, safety, connection, whatever that looks like, right? Then when I am going back to the food, so I eat the caramels. This is something my client did. She had these caramels at school. She ate the caramels again because in her past life that was bad. So she is bad. And that really kicks up that wound because remember, going back to the parts, her manager, the things that protect her were being perfect and following the rules, right? Being a failure has been this thing that she's exiled or kind of try to keep under wraps in her life.
Like because hidden in shame.
Yes, very much hidden in shame. It probably cost her feeling love and connection or safety or identity, whatever that looks like. And so the eating the caramel, right, is now I'm a failure, okay? And if I'm a failure, then I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
But then now I'm actually bringing to the surface the shame, the disappointment, the failure. The food helps to kind of put the fire out from that. But again, I still feel like shit. So then my protector, this perfectionism, comes back in an effort to save me from feeling the shame, the disappointment, the failure. So then I say, oh, I'm okay now. I'm starting back over again. And a lot of people think that that's where they should be. Like, oh no, I'm back on track. The fucking track, the perfect, is what is causing this loop in the first place. It's not the binge eating. It's not the food. It's not the bad food. That is a result of your perfectionism, not perfectionism or getting back on track being the result of binge eating. Does that make sense?
Yes. What I was smirking about is because I'm picturing someone listening to this podcast right now and going like, that seems like just so much. Like that is definitely not happening. And I'm like, it is. Well, maybe not to you, but to most of the people we work with, it is. And
I'll say it easier.
Yeah.
You're binging, so being off track, failing, imperfect, is a solution to the unrealistic expectations you have about being perfect in not just your food, in most areas of your life.
Yeah.
It is the solution to put you out of your fucking misery of trying to meet this thing that doesn't exist. It's fucking tiring. You burn out. Those behaviors come in and say, I will take care of this.
Yeah. I'll make you feel better.
I'll make you feel better.
Being perfect.
Correct.
And then you will be perfect because you can correct this.
And we overcorrect.
And then we overcorrect.
Yeah. And it's learning it that way, because I thought about it the other way. I'm not going to lie. Like I thought about it. I think about things that we both do with like more layers than the average coach. But being able to look at that overindulging, we'll just call it in general, and saying, wow, like I feel really bad for you because that is your solution to something that you're not even aware of.
Perfect example.
Yay.
One of my clients, she sent me this reel of this chick. She every video she introduces herself. Hi, I'm, a 205, 5'5" girl, 5 months postpartum, and I'm on a 50-pound weight loss journey. And then she goes into her topic. This video, she was eating 1,800 calories. She's like, my weight's, I've only lost a pound per week. So I'm gonna tighten down my measurements, and I'm gonna go down to 1,700 calories.
A pound.
And so she's going in, this is what I eat in a day to lose 50 pounds. And I'm like, there is so many things that you're saying here that is wrong. And so I watched a video at first because she sends me this stuff. Like
I love when people send.
She always sends me like the cringe, like I only eat fruit, or I only eat vegetable. I only I don't know what her algorithm is doing to her. And so I let it go, and I was like, I can't let this one go. And so I've commented and I said, hi there. I hope you're going to take this in a way that's coming from my heart. This is not an attack against you. However, 1 pound of, weight loss per week is completely reasonable. 800 at 1,800 calories, if that's sustainable for you, great. Going down 100 calories is not going to significantly change the weight loss you're seeking, as well as 50 pounds is a long-term journey. And I hope this finds you in good light. Or I said something and I said, I'm really sorry that you're struggling with this. And I left it at that because I was like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry that this is like, you are thinking being more perfect on measuring more and more and more is going to give you even more than a pound per week. But if you're at a 50-pound weight loss, like you've got at least 50 weeks of this and 52 weeks in a year. And I'm like, oh my God.
Where are we going to take it down
Yes.
to?
And that's why I'm like, in 1,700 calories at 200 pounds at 5'5", I'm like, you could eat more. Like
I'm 5'5", 155 pounds, and I eat.
Well, and you're postpartum. Like, hello, sister. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, and and you see it. She's sharing what she eats. I know what she eats in a day for that weight loss, and it's like, what happens when you're not perfect for the day and you can't record it? Because that's something you should really think about. Like for coaches that are listening who do share what they eat in a day, like. What happens if that eating is not perfect that day? What does that say about you and your values of yourself?
I should record one of my non-perfect days.
Yeah. The story you're telling yourself, though,
Well, and that goes the opposite way, is that we want to be perfect so much that sometimes we even drown out that we consumed, 100 plus grams of sugar that day or had a binge. But we, in our minds, think that we've been perfect because we're almost exiling. So when I say exile, like think of like putting in jail that failure part of us.
Yeah.
We're saying that doesn't actually exist either.
Yeah.
And so you'll see people be like, I don't understand why I'm not seeing progress. And I'm like, well, I do.
Yeah.
Like you told me. I mean, and I love it because people will tell me like I binged. People will be like, oh no, before this I was only eating X amount of calories. And I'm like, is that true?
Right.
Because again, like if I see you and I have you at higher calories and we're still binge eating and we're still doing anyways. But one of the things I have in the notes here is like this idea of rebellion, right? So if you've been taught your whole life, again, to be perfect. So you might have had a parent who was an addict and you had to be on your best behavior, be the good girl in an effort to keep parent
neutral
or not scary.
Yeah.
Maybe you were in a competitive environment like I was in dance. There's so many reasons why we think in our minds like we have to be this certain way to receive love or safety or perfect is a part of our identity. As children aren't perfect. They're spontaneous. They're very vulnerable. And feeling handcuffed as a child ultimately equals rebellion, right? We're going to rebel against it because it goes so against who we are. And we're just gonna be like, I don't understand. I can't do this. I was watching that Ruby Frankie documentary. I don't remember where it was, on Hulu or something. And the kid goes, I am being myself. I don't know what else you need from me, to the mom, because he wasn't responding to her question in the way she wanted to like present it online. Like that's actually a great example of like what parents say. No, you need to do it again. Like do it in my way. And so the kid thinks, okay, well, when I'm bubbly and happy in this, whatever. So as children, we're naturally going to rebel. And that's why you see kids have tantrums and meltdowns and all the things, because they're basically either just really tired and emotional, but at a certain point they're rebelling. And we see rebellion in the teenage years because the burnout starts to happen of perfectionism. Because as kids, maybe we can like manage it until we realize like our emotions are our own and we have our own subconscious and we have our own like free will. That's why that rebellion happens in the teenage years, because we're putting the puzzle pieces together and it's like, I can't do this anymore. And the perfection is like, we burn out from that perfectionism. So when you're thinking about, okay, I need to be perfect in the food, you're just going back to that little kid or that teenage part of you who's saying, yeah, I'm going to do this for so long, but it's so against my reality that the rebellion then kicks in. And the rebellion doesn't necessarily have to be overeating.
Well, I would say replace food with exercise in this too, because like I'm thinking of the clients the people who have come to us and now they're transformed by us and helping and supporting them. But they, the perfection of doing these workout, like you talked about those apps that, what's the gal's name? The Kim Kardashian. Like her app. And it's a really advanced and high technical kind of movements. And they're trying to do it. They're trying to keep up. And actually there's a gal in our Facebook group that I'm thinking of particularly, that she talks about these YouTube videos and she can't keep up and she's really discouraged and she's really,
I forget the girl's name, the blonde girl.
Yeah. And she's really distraught. And it's like, okay, you're trying to do it perfectly to somebody else's standards or what they're promoting, but it's not working for you. So then you get discouraged and you go, oh, never mind. I just won't do it. I might as well not do anything because I can't do this thing perfectly how the rules are listed or the rules that I made up that they projected onto me.
Let's take that to the next level. You're also putting that person, you're saying she looks perfect and putting her on a pedestal.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
So I mean, take that to the influencers.
Right, exactly.
Right?
You're putting another layer on this. Now, she looks perfect, so I'm going to do what she can do, but I can't do what she does. And also, we don't know what it looks like behind the scenes.
No.
And so, again, for everyone listening, we have to take perfect out of our vocabulary. And I say all the time, perfect, like, oh, that's perfect.
That's different.
Right. And it's not perfect.
And I don't think a lot of
perfect for that situation in that moment.
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people are thinking of perfect of, oh, I need to do this perfect. They're not thinking I need to do this perfect and achieve it. But I think if they got down to it, they'd be like, well, of course you have to do it just right. Like use just right. Or I just have to do it exactly that way. Like that's perfect. Perfectionism.
Right. And I talked to a client about it. I was like, can we just strive for excellence? this is with a surgeon.
Yeah.
Who, when she's trying to be perfect in what she thinks her higher ups want her to do, she ends up making mistakes.
Yeah.
Whereas when she strives for excellence, even though that means that patient's going to be on that table a bit longer, she's going to do better, or the patient's going to have a better experience. Everyone else can shut the fuck up that it took her longer than if she rushed the way they wanted her to and she made mistakes. And she's like, that's been such a mindset shift for me of I strive for excellence in what I do. And excellence is so different because it's not rigid.
Well, and even thinking like for her is a perfect example of if I'm trying to perform to these higher ups, or if I'm trying to perform to this app, if I'm trying to perform to this diet
or my parent,
and I fail at it, or I make mistakes, now the problem becomes that I'm not trusting what I think is best. I'm losing a bit of my confidence as I do this.
Disconnecting from self.
Well, and that goes back to, as you were talking about earlier, this loop. And so every time, and I think of that iceberg again, going back to that analogy, is every time you're going through this loop, there's a chip of the iceberg. Okay, I go back, chip of the iceberg, chip of the iceberg, chip of the iceberg. And now it's a little tiny ice cube in a big pond. And having self-confidence that little when you're in a big pond, trying to navigate it, it's really hard.
Right.
And you get really lost.
Are separate.
Yep. And you're trying to
disconnected.
Yep. And that's where we talk with our clients of like, they don't trust their bodies. Like your body is telling you that this isn't working. You're fatigued. Your hormones are whacked. You're not sleeping well. You're grumpy. Your body is like puffy.
Your mental health.
And your mental health is, you don't have the energy. Your work performance is okay. Like, but you're not trusting what is happening here because you're still trying to achieve doing everything perfect. And even my one of my clients, newly postpartum, she's talking about, I wish I would have just had a better game plan postpartum. And I'm like, what could you have better game plans? Like, what, you probably had a plan, right? Like there was some sort of structure in your head, but what would have made it even more niche that would have given you the body that you're looking for today?
Right.
What would have really moved that needle that much that you were doing? Because you would have just dieted more. You would have just worked out harder. And you're doing that now and you're still not getting the body.
I'm going to side note that I would ask that person, or I usually tell people when they say, I wish or they do the shoulding or the wishing. I said, you weren't ready for that. Or you're going to learn in your life that something, maybe that time with your child.
Yeah. Might have
instead of in the gym.
Yeah.
Is actually the thing you needed. So just a piece on that. I'm not really following these, by the way.
Okay.
But yeah. So I want you, if you're someone who is stuck in this like perfect nutrition, perfect exercise mindset, think about how often that role, that thought process plays in your life and how tiring it is. Because we're saying externally, if I look this way to others, it's not, and you're going to say, no, it's for myself. It didn't start that way. Now you believe it's for yourself. But again, you're, like you just said, working against what your body actually wants, because your body mentally wants the caramels, right? And you resist and resist and resist. So you white knuckle, right? Until your body, your mind, your nervous system gets tired of resisting, burns out. And then when we have the caramels, we have all the caramels, right? So I want you to think about how many areas of your life that perfectionism creeps in, and then look at perfectionism as a protector or manager, right? Look at it as, okay, I've used this guide, and you'll have multiple managers in your life, but perfectionism is usually a big one. I have tried to be perfect all of my life. And then the next question I want you to ask yourself, to avoid blank. So we did this exercise. So, well, I don't remember. Mine was helplessness.
Yeah.
And mine wasn't being perfect. Mine was being uber independent is my manager. To avoid helplessness, to avoid fear, to avoid being unsafe.
I don't remember. My perfectionism, it comes from feeling out of control. So why do I feel out of control? Because things are not controlled in my life. And it's more so of like, because I can't control others, but why do I need to feel control of others? Because if they, like, my thing is always like, if they would just do XYZ, then everything would be good.
Well, I think for you, again, it just goes back to, and I know I hate to bring this up all the time, but like being an only child.
Yeah.
Because you've had control
of
most of your toys, where you spent your time.
Yes.
You know, and so
who I spent my time with.
Right. So then when we're now an adult and like we don't have that, it feels what? Unsafe?
It just feels like frustrating and annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this like lack of, I would even say,
compromise.
Yeah. And like connection. Connection.
Yeah.
It really comes down to the connection.
I would say so. Yeah. Because like when I do connect with someone, I'm like, okay, we're good. But like, you know what I mean? Like there's like, it's fine. Yeah. Right. But like to connect with someone is not an easy thing for me. Like it takes a little bit, like it takes a lot of exposure therapy for me.
Which I've done for her.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, help. Because I'm like, I need help. You need to connect. Let's do this together.
And it's Therapy Monday.
Yes, exactly. So again, what is that perfection keeping you from feeling? Yeah. And those feelings are really hard to connect with because we've kind of
hard to identify.
Yeah.
But
because we've been, again, they're in prison. They're in like a solitary confinement down there. We don't want to fucking see them.
Yeah.
Right. And then, okay, perfectionism, right? That's my default, right? That's my default part. That's the part I always want to kind of show up as because it's provided me something positive too.
Well, people recognize it as like, oh gosh, you're doing so good. Like you just eat so healthy.
Oh,
you're
just such a perfectionist.
You just, like, oh, you're so good about working out.
Women
like,
wear this as pride.
Yeah. And I'm
just really a perfectionist.
Yes. Well, and if you're like, yeah, I do enjoy working out. It's like, no, she actually like is using it to suppress her feelings and hide from her shitty relationship.
Correct. Then when you're in the, what we call the firefighter side of it. So the thing that puts out the burnout, because you're gonna burn out from this. That's where the off track, on track comes in, or on track, off track. The perfect fail, the start again on Monday is at a certain point you burnt out in the week of being perfect on your diet because you're being disconnected from yourself, right? You're not listening to your body. You're kind of, again, white knuckling it through this thing that it doesn't want to do. And the body's just like, I can't do this anymore. And then the firefighter is the overindulgence, the binging, the whatever that looks like, sitting on the couch for, 3 days, or like me sitting in your bed and watching Temptation Island for a whole day. It was wonderful. I was supposed to go to the hospital and see my dad. I said, I just need today.
Oh, good for you.
To veg out. Yeah. I felt bad, but he's doing okay, so.
Well, you've been there every day. Yeah.
Not every day. I can't go Tuesdays and Wednesdays because I work. I have too much work. So, but I've been there.
Okay, you've been there 5 out of 7 days.
Right. Again, not being perfect. So when you can look at this behavior from this different lens, it is freeing to say, wow, I've been looking at the off track, the failure, the binging as my problem. When in all reality, it's what's before that.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
Yeah.
That is just a result of my body screaming for some authenticity and like connection to myself.
Well, I think the perfect example of that is like, let's talk about a binge eater. And I know we're picking on the binge eaters. I'm sorry, but it's
we're not picking on you. We're actually very much validating that we get it.
Yeah. Sure. But what we're saying is, okay, so they think like, okay, so I binge eat like a bunch of cookies, right? And I always use that example. I want people to understand. I always use that example because that was my thing. Like if there were cookies around, it was like, I can't have the cookie. I can't
right now.
Oh, I know. I really want to go to a Chunk, but it's like kind of inconvenient. Anyway,
Chunk.
I know. But like that's why I use cookies. So it could, because that was my thing of like when people would bring in cookies, it's like, no, I can't. Then I would have one. And it was like, once I had that one, it was like a fire in my brain of like, you gotta have more. And I would think like, okay, and then the next day I gotta tap down. So as Christina's alluding to and saying pretty blatantly is it's that leading up to, it's that restriction of being perfect on your diet leading up to that. Then afterwards, I'm having this whole catastrophic mind fuck because I had the cookie. I wasn't perfect. People don't recognize me as perfect of staying on my diet and staying as like this healthy, fit person. Now I've got to overcompensate by showing them I actually am this person.
Right.
When it's me having the insecurity, when it's me, the leading up to the issue is that I don't have flexibility. Thinking of like our binge eaters clients, they don't have emotional like intelligence more so. Like they're not aware of their emotions leading up to it. And that's when we go into when they have the emotional eating episode, what happened before? And they're like, oh, I don't know. It was like a stressful day at work and I just got like super hungry. So, and it was like, okay, wait, what's happening at work? And let's go into that. And then where were you setting up? How did you emotionally regulate? Oh, I didn't. I don't know. I kind of just walked through it. And I was like, well, that's why this came out.
That's so it's so disconnected. Whereas I'm just going to punish myself for this behavior, but have no curiosity to why this behavior exists.
Right.
And that's, again, why we stay so stuck, because we're again, not addressing what needs to be addressed. And unfortunately for people listening, there's not a lot of help out there. We obviously have a program that is very unique in being able to like show people this. And when they have, it's so relieving to them. Like, wow.
I find it's really challenging because there are people that are working with a therapist and a dietitian right now, which I applaud. And then they're looking for a trainer. And I'm like, but how are you going to integrate all of these?
Right.
I think it's great that people are getting these little pockets of help, but how are you have to take ownership and bring it together. And that's really hard.
And make sure that those three people are in alignment with their message.
Yes. Because that's even more challenging.
Right. Because you have one saying the binge eating is actually a solution to your problem. The other one saying just put down the cookie. And the other one saying, no, all foods are good foods.
Well, and even to say, hey, like what I'm doing isn't working. Let's find something else. Because like even sometimes when I'm working like in conjunction with another professional, sometimes their treatment plan isn't helping and they're just trying to throw more exercises at them. And I'm like, why don't we try something else?
Yeah.
And
you advocate for that.
Yes. And so you have to think like at some point, if all of these paths are not connecting for you and you're just still like treading, we've got to find something to integrate everything to bring you back to yourself.
Yeah. And obviously that's what we do here. But I want to give you guys some things to leave with on this today. We did not even look at our notes. No, I love when we talk like this.
Chat.
I
came in snapping.
Yes. So, your thumbs.
Yeah.
So you've heard me say a lot, like connecting back to the self, because when we learn to act in a certain way, and you guys, we're talking about perfectionism today. We can put people pleasing in there, overachieving. There's a lot of different inner child archetypes, as we call them. Today, we're talking about perfectionism. When you learned I can't be who I am truly to myself, so I have to act in this way. And not only do I have to act in this way, when I'm doing that, I'm not listening to what's actually happening inside, both physiologically, mentally, cognitively. So then I engage in the behavior. And as we just talked about, I'm solely just looking at the behavior as the issue, not trying to figure out why that behavior exists. And not only am I just looking at the behavior as the issue, I'm labeling myself as a failed person, cannot lose weight, and these very strong identities. So the easiest thing to do is, as we just said, get curious. Well, why did that happen? Why did I end up, having 10 of the caramels rather than 2 of the caramels? Well, I've been trying to resist those caramels all day today, or the cookies all day today. Then we get courageous and we say, well, what if I just have the caramel when I want it? And once I have it, I have to have, you guys can hear me say these fucking words every episode, compassion. It's like, wow, you did that. Good job. You did that. You're not bad. Nothing's wrong. Move on. Right. And start looking at these things from these different perspectives. Have curiosity, right? Curiosity is key. Understanding why it happened, understanding all of the like build up to it, and where in that build up is the issue rather than the end result, which was overeating or getting off track. Then again, being courageous and doing something different that you don't normally do, having the food, right? Or maybe you don't have it right then, but you're like, okay, I'm going to have that after my lunch. If I still want it, I'm going to have it after lunch.
Yeah.
Not that I can't have it. I can't have it. I can't have it. Like if I want it, I'll have it.
Yeah.
Right. Having the courage to do that. And then again, being compassionate with yourself once it's done. But you're like, all right, look at me. No one, put the, what is it? The A?
Oh, the scarlet letter.
Scarlet letter on me. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And we move on. There's a lot of other ways to connect to the self, but I think in this case, those are the easiest. You know, the others are get creative and get connected, stay calm, and stuff like that. But I think those are the three. And again, biggest one, that compassion of like, oh, it's not the binging or the off track or the failure. That's the problem. It's everything that leads up to that. That's the problem, because that is the thing. If I change that, I never have to be rescued by the binging. So,
good job.
Anything else? Thank you. Thank you. This is what happens when I educate myself. Anyway, if you want help with that, we are the peoples to help you. We have our mindset method. And I would say for this person, our one-to-one coaching is going to be ideal.
Yeah.
Because everything is going to be so specific to you. It's a 4-month commitment. And I'll put the website below. So you can actually check out all of our programs. I guess group coaching, you can definitely do this.
I would say one-to-one.
Yeah,
on this
one-to-one.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, give us a follow. And please share this. Share this, you guys. This is a great episode to share with people. Because whether it's, and for those of you listening, it may not be food. It may be how you show up with your kids, or you show up at work, or you show up in your relationships, or you show up like your makeup. Like that, this can resonate with a lot of people, especially women out there. So please share this. If you haven't already, give us a 5-star rating or review. Make sure you're following and subscribe anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
21 5-star.
21 5-star reviews. Whoop, whoop. That's Spotify. Love that for us. And if you want more information on the Resilient Woman Reset, where we're going to talk about all of these things, please check out the show notes for that as well. And then we want to leave you with this one last thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.